The Reef Therapy Podcast is powered by ICP Analysis. If you'd like to win a free saltwater ICP analysis kit and a freshwater analysis kit, all you have to do is leave a comment down below using the hashtag What's in Your Water. If you're listening to the audio-only version, head on over to YouTube and you can enter in the comment section there. ICP Analysis will test over 50 elements down to parts per trillion. These tests can also be used to see if there's any undesirable elements in your aquarium as well. Register your aquarium on the ICP Analysis app, fill your sample, place it back into the bag, slap on that included postage, and have your results 1 to 3 days after it's received. More at icpanalysis.com.
Hi, everybody. It is Evie here with Reef Builders, and we are here for our second episode of Ladies Takeover Reef Therapy. How are you ladies doing this evening?
Fantastic.
Wonderful. Awesome. I am so stoked to be here tonight. I'm glad that we're all going to get to finally start getting this into our regular routines and get to know one another and talk about all the corals and fish and all that fun stuff that goes along with it. How have y'all been doing since Aquashella? You guys been doing anything fun?
Working.
Which I guess is fun if you're in the industry.
It is.
More fun than other
busy
things.
Time though, that's for sure. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody have Christmas shopping done?
No.
No? I'm not done yet either.
I'm on top of it this
You're
year, and
done?
I'm so proud of myself.
I procrastinate a little bit because I dread the wrapping process. I'm just not a good wrapper. It's bad. It's like T-Rex-esque. So I just try to delay it as much as possible.
That's fantastic.
Well, so I definitely wanted to check in with you ladies and talk about a little bit of the comment section from our first episode at the show. And Sara, you got a lot of people interested in your Caribbean corals. So why don't we just let you do like a little cool, knowledge drop on some stuff, and we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah. So my fun Caribbean coral facts. One of the biggest differences of Caribbean coral compared to Indo-Pacific coral that we found out pretty early on was how heavy feeders they are. So most of our coral, we were having to feed them 4 to 5 times a week, a mixed variety of different foods, everything from powdered to frozen. And that was really critical in helping them recover from damage that had occurred within travel and just from being in the ocean, which is not always a nice stress-free environment. And then something else that was really interesting was just the reaction to alkalinity. So I think a lot of times we think about coral really doing well in that range of 8 to 12. And if you want more growth, you push it closer to the 12. But for these guys, anything above 8.5 DKH, they really hate. They really just all start getting super mad and letting you know that that is not what they want. And so a lot of our coral we have to keep down in like the 6 to 7 DKH range for them to really start thriving and growing, which is so wildly different from Indo.
Yeah, that's so different. So then does that mean that you guys also had to create like totally different lighting, parameters for them as well? Because maybe they get burned easier to go along with that?
You would think, but some of these coral can handle like 600 par when they're out in the ocean. So like
Nice.
some of the pillar corals, for instance, are kept in greenhouses down in Florida where they're at some points of the day getting like 600 par. If it's acclimated appropriately, coral does have a pretty big capacity for being able to accept brighter light spectrums. It's just you have to acclimate it. And I think that's the biggest step people miss, is that you can bring coral kind of up or down. Another thing too is that we've seen that they tend to really like blue light spectrum, which is something we do see in Indo, but they need to be in kind of that warmer light, more like sunlight, for when they're reintroduced into the wild. So you actually try to keep them under whiter lights.
Yeah, you don't want to spoil them. So whenever they're under the blue, do they, because like I haven't really seen any like display tanks or anything set up, obviously, with Caribbeans in there. Do any of them have any fluorescent capabilities that just kind of blows your mind, or are they all pretty muted?
Um, no, we do see fluorescence, which is surprising. Like our Eusmelia, my favorite baby, does have some glow up tendencies. So we do see some fluorescence. There was also to a point where we had some Acropora cervicornis, so the staghorn coral, and those actually we surprisingly had some green fluorescing pigmentation within them, which is kind of weird.
Awesome.
It's not. I don't think that fluorescing protein is as prevalent or as common. Some of our Mycetophilia, usually that green pigment, will see the fluorescing.
Hmm. Yeah, so you're not getting anything like wild and orange and neon pink. I was very curious about that because I was like, they all seem like they're so beautiful, but they all seem just in
They're
general
brown.
like very muted tones. Yeah,
Hmm.
I was being nice. I was being muted, but yeah, they are.
I
They're
know what
or
I
like
love.
gray.
I love them for who they
They're
are.
like a little
How do
orange
you?
inside.
Brown.
I have a question though, because like when with especially when you work with them, when you're feeding so heavily, how do you keep like heavy in, heavy out? Like
Yeah, what's the
what do you
water
do
change and
to
So
stuff
figure it
like?
out?
it's usually just weekly water change,
Because I'm curious if that. Okay.
but we're working in a very different style of system. So for us, they're bare bottom systems with live rock. There's no fish, so we don't really have to worry as much about the nitrates and the phosphates spiking. We do keep an eye on them, particularly phosphates. They seem to be a little bit more finicky around than the nitrates specifically. And over time, we did back down the feeding. So now it's about 2 times a week to 3 times a week. But early on, they just seemed like they really responded well, and we got really good tissue growth, which was what we needed at the time to really help them recover. So I think that again really goes back to your coral will fluctuate depending on their needs and what's going on in your system. So if you're at a time where you do have stress or damage or things like that that you need to account for, you may want to look at some changes to your nutritional regimen because you can help support the coral without like long-term damaging the nutrient levels in your tank. It can be a way to like adjust. And I think we stability is really important, and I will always say you want a stable tank, not to chase numbers, but there is also an ebb and a flow and a season to your tank. So depending on what's going on, you might make adjustments accordingly.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
really good
I
point.
completely agree. I was just really curious about that because we've like I know at New Wave like we heavily feed our corals, but we heavily have to filter them.
Yeah.
So I was just curious on a larger scale how you do.
Filtration is really key. So we try and pull as much uneaten food out as possible with mechanical filtration, and we've got an oversized skimmer on it to just strip more stuff out. But it's usually just consistent weekly water changes, usually 20%. So nothing crazy. And overall, the system's about 300 gallons, and it has like 20 coral in it, and then some cleaner crew,
Oh,
right? So it's like not the bio load in that system is so low that it.
so then you
And
can't.
Yeah,
the
you can
cleanup
get
crew
away
has
with
to be
it.
all
That's
locals
just
as well, right?
What was that?
Your cleanup crew has to be all locals as well,
Yes. So
correct?
we had to get cleanup crew ahead of the disease zone, and our cleanup crew is all still the same cleanup crew we received in 2019, December 2019, and we still have urchins, hermit crabs, snails, all kinds of little critters from that original shipment. We never received a second shipment, so
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's really awesome.
it's amazing when they have like no predators and no random puffers trying to like.
I was thinking that just add a puffer or a trigger or something
Yeah.
in there or a
I was
hawkfish.
just thinking about that. I was like, well, there's nothing in there really to pick on them. And there's
Yeah.
not really anything really for them to get stuck behind and like pinned into rocks and then just,
Lost because you
fade
don't see it.
away.
It's a different
Yeah,
way to
lost
keep
because you
a
don't see it.
tank. And it's because the purpose of the tank is purely like research and conservation focused. But it's not, I won't say it's the prettiest tank, right? You're not replicating a reef, but there is a beauty to having these isolated corals on like discs where you can really see like a 360 of them. And it's a different experience, and it's has its ups and its perks, and it has its cons. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why I like low boys. Like whenever I think about doing a low boy ever, I'm just like, I just want to be able to make sure I can see everything from the top. If I turn everything off, I can see it through the sides of the glass. I can easily get in there and examine anything if I want to. And I can see that it's very, very beneficial from that aspect that you guys are working on to be as close and monitoring everything as possible. But you guys do have some big vats that go along with that program too, which is very cool.
Do you ever time, like a heavy feeding around your water change? Like for service, I'll come in and I'll do a feeding before I clean the tank sometimes, and I can feed extra heavy on that particular feed, or maybe put multiple different items in because I know I'm going to be pulling some of it out. Or do you wet skim? Do you guys pull and wet skim?
Yeah, so we'll sometimes wet skim, both intentionally and unintentionally, and then because I think we've all done that. But yeah, timing is really critical. So giving them, sometimes even doing like a night feed, so feeding the day before you're going to be doing a water change. So before we leave, we'll throw some food in the tank and then the next morning do a water change. So that gives an opportunity for those coral that have more of those nocturnal feeding strategies to still be able to get their food, and allow us again to snag that food out of there really before it starts to go through kind of that mineralization breakdown that leads to nitrates.
Right.
So did you say you guys have certain schedules for feeding? Like at 3:00, it's a feed time? Or...
We try not to be that rigid, just because usually it's like this is a feed day. So sometimes it depends on who's doing work on the system. We have a volunteer who's been consistently helping us on the system for 2 to 3 years, Ty, who's fabulous. And sometimes we'll change the regimen based on days that he's in. Our aquarist, Heather, sometimes she's doing work on it. So it really just depends on who the person is and their particular style. So we have some fluctuations, but I think that sometimes does benefit the coral because they get a variety of feeding strategies. Some will work better for certain species than others, so it helps kind of spread the love a little bit.
Well, yeah, and even in the ocean, I mean, it's random. They don't get to have a schedule, so that actually works out pretty good, I'm sure. Plus, if you forget, you can be like, "Hey, go over there. This still needs to be done. It's not checked off on the list."
Yeah, and there's like
that's why I was curious.
Yeah,
when you said schedule, because I was like, "Wow, that is
it's."
better than any of us can do normally."
But I mean, I do the same thing with maintenance. I mean, obviously both of us doing maintenance on a daily basis for lots of fish tanks. I feed really heavy before I do big water changes, like even today. I mean, I will target feed all my acanthos or my sanarinas or scolies, whatever, my acans even, and then, anything that's left over that gets knocked out by this stupid gem tang that I have to beat basically with the turkey baster. But
just poof them away.
Knocked off I mean, it doesn't matter. This thing will not. It's absolutely relentless. Like it's like pretty shy until I bring out the turkey baster, and then it just follows me and then just eats off. It's like when people say that cleaner shrimp are super pesty with feeding corals. No, tangs are too. But yeah, so then I just do big water changes. To siphon out any of the extra stuff, because I do feed LPS pellets as well, to my my larger LPS corals, and so it allows me to do that without having to monitor. I mean, I always test I take a water sample obviously first before I do that, and then see where I'm sitting to decide what water change size I'm going to do. But I've seen that a lot of my Ghanis with feeding a lot I mean, we brought a lot back from Indonesia, but we've had ones for years and years and years now that we've cut several times. And that's one of those corals that's like kind of nerve-wracking. So sometimes they do well, sometimes they don't.
Yeah, for sure. So do you all like to turn off all your flow and then just like put all the food in? Or do you all like to keep it running?
Depends what food for me. Like, I don't really turn it off when I do frozen, but if I'm doing coral spot food, like
coral feeding,
then I will turn it off.
I did too. I would turn it off, and I'd take my time. I'd let it all just like have like a suspension buffet. And then I'd go like mix my water. Like I wouldn't be in any rush. I'd be like, yeah, y'all got like a good 30 minutes before I come back and take it away from you. So
yeah, you can see it getting blown right out if you turn it on too quick.
Yeah.
It's like they're not getting anything.
Yeah, they take and some corals take forever, and some take it right away. So it gives them that opportunity. Plus, I mean, I've done a couple time-lapse videos where you can, like, I've watched a chalice.
Oh yeah,
That's
all
really
of them bubble up and start eating it. I love those videos.
Yeah, that was really, really interesting.
I think that's what first got me into coral, because I started in freshwater, and I actually got hired at a shop that was mostly saltwater at the time. They were getting ready to put in freshwater, so they were like, well, we'll just teach it to her as we go. And the guy that was training me fed a piece of mysis shrimp or something to a scolie, and it blew my mind. Like I was like, where did that go? Like where is it? He's like, it's in its stomach, like in the body of the coral.
Well, and if you don't sit there and watch,
its mouth butt.
It's gone.
Its mouth butt. It was in the mouth.
Yeah, that's what I call it. Its mouth butt. Because kids are always like, where does it go? Where does it come back out? I'm like, and like, where's his mouth? Right there.
This is a one enter, one exit situation.
Yeah.
I was officially fascinated. I was like, okay, coral. Yep, I'm going to do this.
Yes, that's awesome.
That was amazing. We're just
so
mouth butt.
Yeah, real quick, I don't want to circle back too far, but Sarah, the coral that you have now, are you still getting imports, like more coral, or are you guys done? Like you have your coral, it's there, and you're waiting for a release time to ship them back out to the ocean?
Yeah, so our coral are the same coral we received in 2020. We do have a couple little gemmas, like little pieces that it's a form of asexual propagation that they kind of like the tissue like drips off. So we have a couple of
skin tags.
Yeah, exactly, the little skin tags. So we have a couple of those. We might eventually get some coral from another institution if they're trying to make space for different coral. The disease band has hit the dry tortugas, so all the Florida Reef track is exposed to the disease now. So any coral moving is going to just be moving within the project itself. Some facilities do have coral that came from the disease zone called endemic coral, and those coral are the ones they want to breed with our coral. So we have the healthy coral that were pulled pre-disease, and then endemic coral, which survived the disease, and the goal is to breed the genetics of the healthy coral with the coral that survived, so that you have these offspring that when they return to the ocean, they don't just like instantly die because they aren't prepared for this disease. So the hope is to try and create coral that's more resilient to it.
I love that. I think that that's such a huge gateway to future understanding for coral genetics, is whenever we start really getting to dive into some of that stuff, because there's so much unknown. And there's so much that we don't yet understand with what happens with all the transfer and the back and forth, and just even from tank to tank, like tank to tank stuff, like on the molecular cellular level, all that stuff. It's mind blowing, because everybody's got different vibes going on, whether, their tank's 5 years old or it's 5 months old. There's just something different in everything. So that's dope. So Chelsie, what have you been up to? Were you doing maintenance today? Did you do anything fun?
Yes, I had a route that's pretty far out. Well, so this is my maintenance. I have a couple maintenance days that are long days, and Wednesday is my one long day because I travel out like an hour and a half, and I do a couple tanks at a time. And one of the tanks is a innovative 75 that INT that is new, and he had a BioCube, and so we've been slowly transferring his. It's been up for I say new, it's been up for a month, but we've kind of been letting it cycle and do its thing because it has new rocks. So kind of going through the new tank syndrome on some of that stuff, and we broke down the BioCube and got rid of that. I mean, it was like there was salt creep on the seams, like it was about to bust. He was like forced into a new tank. But so it's a long route just because so much stuff is new on that route, And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, it seems like cyano seasonally appears.
Yes, it totally does. When we start
maybe
moving
that's the
into
terminology
fall,
we
winter,
use.
Fall, winter, it seems like you'll get a bloom.
Yeah.
Then summer, spring into summer, I would feel like I always got a bloom.
Yeah. And so I'm not, saying it's because of the seasons, but that's what we call it. And sometimes it happens in like a time range where it's like, okay, I have 3 tanks with cyano now. So that's fun. So it's just that kind of time of year where you're trying to manage multiple different things popping up, and it just ends up being a long day.
Yeah. And then you've also got, people asking, why is this happening? It literally appeared overnight, or my tank was flawless for so long. Yeah. And there is certain times I felt like also during the year where I'd be like, oh, the sun's it's hitting differently. Here comes, all the red. Yep. It's coming. I can see it. I would start to see the little spider webs like first form, and you get that little pink tint. And I was like, there it is. All the temps are dropping.
Yeah.
I can tell.
And for new hobbyists, go ahead.
Or I think a lot of it actually has to do with the changes in like the water table for seasons. And it potentially can, even though we're using RO and all the other stuff, I don't know. I don't have any scientific basic or like background on that, but I've seen that water parameters, I think it's got to be something to do with the water table, because it does affect, I know like the chemical, like each city has their own way of treating things like chloramines versus chlorine and all that. You'd think that might have something to do with it as well.
I can totally see that.
And it's just kind of like the freak out factor with people when that happens. Mm-hmm. Is like, I have some people that are like, they immediately want to chemi clean. And I'm like, just hold on a second. Let's just see where we're at.
Let it ride out for a week or
chemicals
so
in the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So kind of managing everybody's reactions during the holidays, because they want their tanks to look good when their family comes, but at the same time I'm like, if we do this now, it'll be good for a week, but then you might see something else pop up, because if there's not one, something else is going to pop up, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just hold on, see if we can manage it, clean it, I'll time it so that your tank is pretty clean before people are coming, and then we'll go forward with our plan. Stay on the plan.
Yeah. I'd rather deal with cyano than like a lot of the other ailments. Like I like, bubble algae and hair algae and dinos. Like I'd rather have cyano all day over those guys.
Oh yeah. Now I'm at the point where I'm like, cyano.
Yeah.
Like I'm not worried.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Like I got this.
Well, nature loves a vacuum. So when you create space in a tank where you suddenly like kill off a bunch of stuff that has kind of within the natural ecosystem of your tank risen up, like you create this vacuum and you don't know who's gonna fill it. Like it could be anybody.
Possibly something.
Exactly.
So true.
So it's like you're like kind of playing algae roulette here. You're devil.
And
it is.
We want to say like, when you look at it, you want to say that's cyano, but it's probably 3 different things. It's probably some diatom, some cyano. There's probably some hair algae that died off that the cyano is now attached. Like we can't just be like, it's cyano, so I'm going to dump ChemiClean in there. Mm-hmm. ChemiClean is, an all fixed solution, because there's probably something underneath there, or like you said, something else is going to pop up. So hold your horses.
Well, additionally to that, other than them like having like type seasonal change with the cyano, if we want to loop it into there, but now you've got people that are wanting to entertain because the holidays are coming, and what do they want to do? They want to add fish, they want to add coral, and now so you're adding to the bio load, and you're just like, we've got a lot going on here.
That is.
And now they're feeding even more, because like, well, I have like 3 new fish. That means that's definitely, extra food that's got to go in. So everything's already trying to equalize along with the holidays with you.
I should call that like holiday syndrome for your tank. Like it's just all self-inflicted issues that you create upon yourself while trying to make the perfect tank for your guests.
Right? Yes.
I've cleaned tanks while their whole family is sitting in the living room and I'm there cleaning.
And they watch you.
Yes,
yeah.
I am the entertainment.
Yeah.
Because normally I think to myself, oh, they don't want me in their house right now. It's holiday, the week of whatever holiday. No, it's okay. Come clean the tank. And I get there and the whole family.
Yeah, it is. It's like a whole family event. And then
and they have like their list of questions. They're like, okay, so why does, whatever do
How
this
does
or why does that
poop?
do that? And it's like, yeah, exactly.
It's the mouth butt.
It actually throops.
It's mouth butt. Oh, that's.
I think like
That's
the other.
It's a throop. It's a throw up poop. Throop. It's a mouth butt.
That's the other part of service, that it's like you have to learn how to educate on the fly, right? Because you're armpit deep in salt water trying to like not knock stuff over, and you've got questions going on, which I love it, but it's a whole other aspect of multitasking.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're like, okay, wait a minute here. Because they're like, I got to show you this picture. And they're like, I got water here. I got water here. I got water on the floor now. And so, but I know that too, like the last several weeks, everybody's preparing, and then they want to, and then you get the people that come in the store and they mean well, and they're like, well, so-and-so loves fish. I want to buy him a fish for Christmas.
Oh,
it's
the
fish for something.
The
I'm
fish
like, please
gifts.
don't do that.
Gifting of fish.
Yeah, and like there's this really awesome thing. It's called a gift card that they can choose a fish.
Gift cards.
Yeah, because otherwise, I mean, I'll likely go to several different accounts, or my staff will, like, come January 1st, we'll be like, where did that fish come from? Oh, Aunt Betty got me this for Christmas. It's like, no, now your whole tank is sick, or that one doesn't get along with that one, or that we were talked about puffers before the podcast, but that's gonna eat all your coral.
Yeah, and I think like that kind of ties into what we were talking about in our chat of maybe things that you shouldn't have in your tank if you're not a certain level hobbyist or reef keeper, and that happens when your relatives buy you things because they just don't know. Like I just was on one of the forums and they're like, they're literally holding up a bag of nudibranchs, and the velvet nudibranchs, and like, I got these from my relative, bought me these from the store. What do I do with them?
Yeah.
So, there are some things that just don't belong yet or ever. And I think we all have our own list of those things that may be controversial, and maybe personal, but there are some things that if, I get to the point where I open a store, I probably will never stock them.
Yeah.
There's several things. And every time I go somewhere and I dive, there are additional species that I absolutely will not. Like this last trip to Indonesia, I got to see ribbon eels. I haven't ordered a ribbon eel, and I don't think I've ever ordered a ribbon eel, but I will never have a ribbon eel.
They're just so delicate
in the store.
They're so delicate,
they're
and it's so
delicate.
hit or miss if they're going to do well.
Well, and they, they're just, and same with Moorish idols. I mean, they've always been my favorite fish. I have a tattoo of a Moorish idol that I got when I was 18. It's just, but they do not survive in captivity, and I will not get them.
Yeah, it's very tough.
And I know that, so in the position of service, if someone asks me for a certain thing, and I don't think it's a good idea, I will express that I don't think it's a good idea, but it's their aquarium. So at the end of the day, if they want it, they're going to go out and buy it. But I think it is our responsibility, especially for store owners, sometimes to just not stock them. You can ask for them. You can ask for a special order, and then we'll have that conversation. And maybe we still ordered at the end of the day, but it's almost our responsibility to maybe not stock certain things or heavily educate on certain things, because a lot of times it's just people don't know. I mean, I know that with myself when I first got into the hobby. I had I just really wanted a horseshoe crab. Just really wanted it. But I had a 20 long aquarium, and I didn't know how clumsy they are, and they're just bulldozers, and you would get stuck to my power head, and people might hate on me for this, but this is just something you learn as a newbie. You learn that, and then you don't do it again.
Yeah.
But So now those of us that have done that can now say, maybe not a great idea.
I wanted a sand dollar really bad. I was like, oh, I'm getting a saltwater tank. I cannot wait to have a sand dollar. And then I started doing research and I was like, I'm not going to keep a sand dollar.
They're filter feeders?
A sand dollar?
What is wrong with me? I can't do that.
Invertebrates are great. One of my favorite stories when I worked at the pet store was this guy who came in and he was talking to us about how he needed to get a tank. He was like, I need the biggest tank you have because I know this guy and he's going to get me a box jelly. And we're like, a box jelly? The itty bitty teeny weenies, guys? He's like, yeah, it's the deadliest jelly and I need a huge tank. He had no idea what it was. And we didn't stock it, obviously, but it was just like someone coming in with no understanding of the animal, but they were adamant that they had to have it because it was the deadliest, but it's the biggest, it's the coolest. You get all these things, and I think it's really hard sometimes to coach those people into making a good choice, and it's exhausting. So I always recommend to people who are new to the industry or new to the hobby, come in as an open cup. Learn things, ask questions, be open to the fact that what you want might not work for you now, but once you've learned the basics, one day you could have that thing potentially if you learn enough. So it's really tough to be told no or you shouldn't do something. But if a business is telling you that you shouldn't spend your money on something, to me, I feel like that's such a green flag for a for a local fish store. If someone's adamantly I don't want to take your money because I don't think this is a good idea, listen to them because it's probably true and they want you to be successful, because if you're successful you'll stay in the industry. If you make poor choices, if you have deaths of these animals you really were excited about, that most people shut down their tank.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my sales pitch. I'm like, you know what? I would love to take your money today. However, I want to take your money tomorrow as well. And if I sell you this, you will not be successful and you will get out of the hobby and then you'll stop spending money. And this is really about me.
This is a me thing.
And if you're really passionate about it,
snap.
If you're really passionate about it,
they're like, she might be serious. I'm like, I'm sort of serious. I mean, I want people to be successful, but sometimes you got to make it, you got to dumb it down to okay, now then, oh yeah, I'm making this decision. It's it's your decision.
I'm not trying to stop your decision. No. I'm just trying to give you all of the facts so you can make the best decision for you and for me, because I want your money.
100%.
Well, it's I want you to be successful. I want, and above all, they're animals.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's when you want a bicolored parrotfish in your 55-gallon, the answer is no. And will I special order it for you? No. Because, they, if you've ever seen them in the wild, they're this big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're huge.
Or panther groupers. Did you ever get in the panther groupers? They come in, they're this big.
I know. They're so cute when they're babies.
And then as adults, I mean, they're cool. Yep. They're kind of ugly as adults, but they're also 2 feet, 3 feet long.
Yeah. And they eat everything that fits in their mouth.
Take them.
Everything.
They do take everything.
That's the other thing. I don't want it back.
Yes. That's I'll just bring it back when it gets big.
No, you won't.
Don't. I don't want it back. That isn't even a thing. So panther groupers or sweet lips.
I've used that line this week. Don't give it back. I don't want it back.
This is a you problem now.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think that's what people do when there is a such thing. I call it MTS, or multiple tank syndrome, where, people do end up getting bigger and better tanks down the line. But don't start with, a 10-gallon with, a blue hippo tang and say, well, I'm going to get this, or, I'm going to do this. That's just, you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Don't go into it with that mindset. And I think if you are truly passionate, you're a new reefer and you come to me and you say, I want to get a shark. Okay, how big's your tank? If you're not ready for it at that time, but you're truly passionate about it, if in a year from now you still want that shark, you will have the tank, you will have that knowledge of how to take care of it, and then you can get a shark. It won't go away if you truly want a shark, but sometimes it's a whim.
Right. Well,
and if you can't have it now, it'll maybe go away if you just calm down a little bit.
And that's where the multi-tank syndrome comes in, because now you're like, well, this tank's doing good, but I'm going to add this one for this specifically. I enjoy those stories so much because you get to talk to people that are like, yeah, so I really wanted this set of clowns over here, but I really wanted some maroons, but they're terrible mannered. And then this tank, I just said, no clowns. I didn't want any. But they wanted to keep everything else up and running, and you're just like, nice.
Yeah.
Water change day is rocking.
I mean, then you get to have, the best of both worlds. Like, you know, you can do a fish only tank. My husband, obviously, he collects, you know, rare angelfish. And, you know, they're not, no matter what he tells me, our masked angels are not going, they're not.
No, they're not.
I don't care. I've tried them in two. They're not. I've watched them, physically watched them eat coral. So it's over. Same with even like our captive raised regals. They really like chalices and zoes. I mean, and now they like Indophilia.
My favorite things.
I know. So now they get to live in an SPS system, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, they're still in a beautiful environment. So
and they can be in a beautiful fish only as well. But I mean, it wouldn't. We're fighting over now that our tank, like we have an empty 600.
Yeah, your big one. I mean, I was there when
our big tank.
I was going to say, this sounds like a
amazing.
source of contention.
It's
here.
amazing.
Well, no, it's been in the garage for 4 years because we can't decide fish only or reef. Well, it's going to be a reef tank because I'm the one that's going to be taking care of it. Yeah. And I mean, we all know happy wife, happy life. No, but he does love his his angels, and I wish I could put that. I mean, obviously they deserve to have a huge 600-gallon tank to swim around in, but they can stay in the tank at the store then, and because otherwise.
So you're telling me there is a perk to having a partner that does not care at all about your fish tank, which is you can do whatever you want.
No contention.
Yeah, because you can. So Doug and I, like, he is. So when I explain our relationship, I'm like, he is a hobbyist and I am a business owner. So we cannot do water changes together because he does a water change like a hobbyist, which
water everywhere.
Water everywhere. It's messy. It doesn't have, there's no rhyme or reason. He like, oh, he's over here and then he's over there. And it's like 4 hours later. And I'm like, all right, we haven't even like mixed water. And, you know, I'm done with this. Like, I've been doing this all day. I don't want to do this. And so then he's just like, wait, you're rushing me. And I'm like, okay, you do you. And then the next time, so then we do split water changes. So like on Sundays, we would do our water changes. So it's like, I will go down and I will do all of the main tank stuff. Like I'll feed them and I'll algae and whatever. And his job was skimmers. And at that time we had filter socks. Now we have rolling mat, but you know, you have all that. And I'm like, you do that because you can tinker and move around and talk to them all day long. I just want to get the main stuff done and move on with my day.
And I'm over here like, how do you turn on the RODI unit again? It's just the thing behind the washing machine. The float valve will turn it off. How much do I put in there? The ATO is a little marker, that little thing in there that sits in there, that leveler. So that's the opposite. And I could put $1,000 fish in my tank and it would never be done.
Nice. You got me and Sean where we're just like, hey, did you turn on the RO unit? No. Yes, I did 5 hours ago. Oh, God. We go in this goes from the top.
You have your automatic shut-off, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, oh, no, don't do that.
Yeah, no, it's chilling, like, in the garage.
There is definitely pros and cons, but I actually think it's a very, I mean, it's kind of odd topic, but it's a cool topic. It's like, I always talk about it when my customers come in. It's like, are you here because you love the hobby? Or I always say, are you guilty by association?
Yeah.
Because like generally you'll have somebody that's like, oh, I just don't want to be here. Like, or you'll have, you know, the husband-wife team where they both are like, this is our thing, or it wasn't totally my thing, but then I fell in love with it at the same time.
I love it whenever one introduces the other, and then it's like, well, he or she doesn't let me touch their tank, so I'm going to buy my own tank. And then like they don't tell the other one, and then they just show up with the other tank, and they're just like, did you know that they were coming in and buying a tank? And I'm just like, I thought you knew. I mean,
yeah, I just work here. That's what I say.
I'm not your marriage counselor.
Yeah, I have
clients. No, I have actually, they're great clients and they're actually really good friends too. But she wanted her own tank, and or she always wanted to buy something to put in his tank, and he was very particular about what went in there. So she started her own, and they're super, super competitive, and it's funny. But I mean, sometimes I'm like nervous. It makes me like anxious when I go there because, like if something's wrong with his tank and not with her tank, then he's mad. It gets awkward.
It's like the funniest stories though. Like I'll have my husband tell when people come over to the house. I'll be like, "Why don't you tell them what fish and corals we have in here?" And he's like, "This is bassalim, and this is," and I'm like, "Basslet? That's a basslet." And I just love to hear his made up words for whatever these corals are and whatever the fish are.
Sometimes the nicknames are cool, and you're just like, "Oh, that was actually a really good one."
Yeah, I like that.
Maybe they come up with something quirky.
He did learn not to name them.
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah.
He learned not to name them.
But don't call them gobbies, because they're not gobbies. They're gobies. I can't handle that when people come in. They're like, "I have a, or blemmy." Like it's not even.
What about
like
a chicklid?
I was gonna say. The
like
chicklids. I win on that one though, because my brother used to work at Petco, and he had a guy come in and they asked for an African chinchilla.
Oh, I've heard.
Like,
yeah, we had that happen before. And we're like, what?
So he's like, well, they're like, I need
Special
food
order
for my African chinchilla, and so he's like, brought him to the small animal section. They're like, no, it's a chinchilla. He's like in a glass cage. I'm like, and my brother was so confused, and he's like, it's a fish, and he's like, a cichlid. He's like, yeah, cichlid, chinchilla, whatever. It's like, what?
Well, I used to understand it. Like,
that's a new one.
There's a whole thing about if you read complex words and you've never heard it said out loud. That the reason you might mispronounce is because you've never heard it said. Like a lot of Latin names,
right.
Oral names. I had a professor who's like, just say it with confidence, and it's probably right. Because it's a dead language. Like, it's fine. Just say a scientific name with confidence. But this day and age, when we have so much available to us with like all the fish stream and YouTube videos, and there's so many wonderful resources out there, that I think it's so shocking to me that there's still people who go into these stores and will just make like it just shows, I think, that you didn't do your research at all, and that's telling for us when we're trying to get you set up.
Well,
it's like,
Google has that tool, right?
Oh yeah, like
doesn't Google have that tool?
Yeah, like talking to it.
Yep.
Or it's like, how do you say this?
I need to do that more often because I'm very guilty of just botching the English language in general. But I'm just gonna say this. Is it Watanabe, Angel, or Watanabe?
Isn't it Watanabe?
What is it?
I thought it was Watanabe.
That's
Watanabe?
I
think it's Watanabe.
Watanabe,
yeah.
I'm sure we'll hear it in the comments.
But I mean, I got nailed on one of the videos I did because I said Scully versus Scully, and someone said, "Oh, I can't listen to you because you don't know how to pronounce it. You obviously don't know what you have."
Like, it's like some people say Acropora, some say Acropora, or like.
Yeah,
I think
that's different than an African chinchilla.
Yeah, African chinchilla.
And I mean, they don't even have like the same.
There's nuance to this. Where sometimes it's just
you have to learn how to translate some of the other things. You're just like, okay, what? You're trying to say
dialect
like that.
comparatively to just sheer zero research. I've been honestly, just come in with like a good attitude, like that you're excited. Like if you don't know or you don't understand something, if you come to me at a store and you're like, look, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this wrong, or I'm not sure if this is the right way to pronounce it, but I'm really interested in this animal and want to learn about how to keep it, and you mispronounce it chicklid, like I'm going to come at you with so much more compassion and want to educate you than if you come in and you're like, I don't care what you want to say. I want an African chinchilla. I think it's in a glass box, maybe with or without water. Like it's just a different vibe in how you approach it. I think that's something too, when you come into the hobby and the industry, is come in with a good attitude, come in with wanting to learn and be educated. And I think you get back what you put out. So if you're having really negative experiences with store after store after store, maybe it's you. Maybe you need to change your approach.
I always love it whenever they
we
would
would
say
leave,
it, and you'd be like, "Oh, you actually said it right," and they would just light up. They'd be like,
Yes.
yes, I had no idea,
I did it.
and you're like,
Well, there's lots of things we all pronounce wrong.
absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
but it's the learning aspect. It's like, oh, or if you like you correct somebody and they're like, oh, whatever. It's like, oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't trying to insult you, just so you don't repeat that.
yeah.
Like
Oh, I'm
one of my
very
new hires talked about how he's testing. Oh God, it wasn't salinity. He said it was like something totally off topic, and everyone else was kind of like giggling about it. I'm like, no, we need to like tell him to correct him so he doesn't do it again. He's not doing it because he's an idiot.
Yeah.
He just thought that's how it was pronounced.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so it's just like helping them out.
Yeah,
like,
help each other, lift
you know
each other up.
Yeah, help, but it's not like a mean, evil thing. Like I know more than you. It's like, oh, you know, if I was saying something wrong, I want someone to correct me.
What's the
too.
approach,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Especially your
Are you
employees.
trying to educate somebody or are you trying to school somebody? Because those are two very different things.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to educate somebody, I'm
That's
trying
fair.
to elevate their experience. I'm trying to have them walk away richer for that experience. If I'm trying to school somebody, I'm trying to put them down. I'm trying to prove that I know more than them. And I think that it's a detriment to our industry when we approach things like that, where we approach people from that position of I'm trying to prove. And I think too, as a woman, right, in the industry, I'm sure you've run into this where I've had customers who completely disregarded my experience, my expertise, my advice because they didn't think I knew what I was talking about. And I could have gotten really annoyed and mad about it. But usually I just let them walk around to all the other employees and slowly work their way back to me.
Yes. I
Or
used to do that. I used to do that in the
happens,
store.
right?
And they would go straight to the maintenance guys. Straight to the maintenance guys. I would be standing right there with like, you know, mad scientist test kits, and I've got all my water samples, like I've got my charts, like I'm sitting there doing it, and they just go straight to the maintenance guy and they ask them like a technical question. They would just be like, yeah, she has the best answer. And I'd just be like,
Go
yeah.
ask Evie.
It's like a
How'd
little
you
walk
go?
of
What can I
shame
help
back
you
to
with?
you.
Yeah, it is the walk of shame too, because like, damn it, and now I have to like, okay, I misjudged you.
I didn't even say
and
hi.
we're all guilty of doing.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we're all guilty
Or-
at some point. But I do agree with it. Being in the industry for, you know, almost 3 decades. As I get older, I guess I don't see it as much because I'm aging and I don't put up with it. But when you're younger, I mean, I got it all the time. I mean, especially with like doing maintenance, you know, I'd be carrying the jugs in. Hey, nice jugs. It's like, really? Like, no one has ever said that. Like, come up with something.
If you're gonna cat
You
You
know what I
want
mean?
to carry? You
Or-
want to carry one of these 5-gallon buckets? Like, here, help me, take this. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So now when people are like, "Oh, did you need some help?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like, oh,
Absolutely.
she took me
Please
up on
help.
it.
When I was new, I was so stubborn about that. Like, no, I got this. This is part of my
Okay.
job. I'll dump the bucket. I'll carry the jug. And now I'm like, yes,
you want to
please,
carry it?
please
Heck
do.
yeah! Like, please
This
do.
is my 3rd tank today. Please do.
In fact, if you don't like ask, I'm gonna be really mad. No.
Like, my wrist is shot. I need some
Yeah.
help. But I was so
Uh.
stubborn about it at first. And that's like just one of the things that now you're doing it for a while and you're like,
because you feel
can
like
do
you have to
that.
prove
Yep.
yourself, and there's like that imposter
It's true.
syndrome. That's something it was actually like this year, which is insane. But I had a moment where I like turned to my husband. It was after doing work down in Florida, and I turned to my husband and I was like, you know what? I actually really do know what I'm talking about when it comes to coral. And like it was like a weird, and there's so many people out there who know so much more than I do, but it was so like validating to like have that moment.
Yeah.
And it was also so crazy to be so far into like this field and my career and to still be having those moments where I'm like, yeah, I do have this. And I like there's that imposter syndrome where you do have such vast wells of knowledge that you don't appreciate because you're like, well, other people know it or there's someone smarter than me. But like building that trust and that sense of like, feeling good about yourself is so important too, and like trusting what your knowledge. It was just like a really fun moment.
Yeah. And like talking with
probably made you
hobbyists.
want to even learn more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And talking with the hobbyists too, and you just start having that open conversation, and then it's just flowing. Like whenever I was up there at Jen's store earlier this year, I was having so much fun.
That was so awesome.
I was having so much fun.
We needed I wish that was videoed, but it wasn't.
That was so fun. I really enjoyed myself. The lady was so nice.
That was awesome. We could have like literally, had we had like a week together selling, I could have shut down the store for a month. We would have sold out on everything. Like we didn't even plan it. Like it was just like we were feeding off each other, and customers were getting excited about it. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
And because I don't know, maybe it's that stereotypical thing when you look at I'll use myself as an example. You look at me, you look at Ted, you look at whomever in the store. A lot of times they're like, they wouldn't think that I would know things. That's just the way that they, like you're saying, they go right to somebody else. But then when you start, and I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, well, you need to ask me because I know everything. In fact, I tell people, the day that I say I know everything, run.
That's such a good indicator.
Yeah,
though,
I feel like I'll never know it all because there's just no way.
Anybody who says like they know everything means they're unwilling to learn new things. And I think, like, everything's evolving constantly.
There's always new things. New things being discovered, all of it.
But I think, too, then people just see the passion. And so then they see that they're like, oh, okay. You know, like they just, it doesn't even matter who I am or who's talking at that point. If you're male, female, whatever. They just like, they're just like, oh, I just want to hear knowledge. I just want to hear things. I don't care who tells me. Just tell me things.
That's what I was thinking, like, even after our first podcast, is it's really, like, people are drawn to the passion of it. And if you're humble, you're still learning, but you're passionate about the learning. And that's what attracts people to it. And that's what makes you a good teacher. And you probably have some level of confidence, like Sara was talking about. When I got into this, I saw the job ad. I was actually a waitress, and I saw a job ad for aquarium maintenance tech, and I was like, I can do that. I know I can do that. Like, I'm going to apply for this job. I didn't know that it was a mostly saltwater store. I'm thinking freshwater in my head, right? But I knew in my head that I could do it, and what I mean by that is that I would take I would do what it takes, do what it took. To learn what I needed to learn, but that I knew I could do it. And I think that's what really makes you successful, is have some confidence in yourself and show your passion, and then keep learning. And that's what brings people into the hobby and makes new hobbyists and people that come in knowing nothing in the store. That's what makes them stay and learn and keep their tanks and join the rest of the crew.
Yeah. Or even try new things. You know, if you thought that, like, you only really ever want to do Zoas, or if you ever really wanted to do softies, and then there's just that one day where you see like this LPS that just blows your mind, and you've always been intimidated by them, and you go, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I want to try it. And I loved seeing that so much on people's faces, because I remember when I had that moment when I became super infatuated with SPS, and I started reading everything I possibly could get my hands on about them. And I was like, these are so cool. They are so fascinating, but I know I'm not ready for it. But when I am just going to throw myself at it even more than I could. And I enjoy talking, with so many of my friends that even know more or have, bigger, more broader collections than I ever did. And I'm just like, dude, I thought I knew a lot. You've got more details on certain things than I do. And I super enjoyed it because I was like, when you get to some SPS, you're like 700 gallons if it's dedicated to it. That's not very much when you start really letting them grow out and stuff. And then you start to see all the new ones that are being discovered. And, you've got some of the the blending of others where they've got the different striations and colors because they're growing together, and they're just kind of selling those as frags and continuing on with that, like that color line. I don't want to say bloodline, but color line. And you're just like, dude, there's like 20 other variations of this one that I started with. And like, I'll never catch up, but it's awesome that you've got it. Like,
Keep it alive.
I know, I'm going to enjoy it in your tank. I
I
ran out
live
of room.
vicariously. So one of my like coral dirty secrets is that I have genuinely killed every zoanthid I have ever touched. I can't keep a zoanthid alive to save my life. I can keep rare and perilled coral alive. Can't keep a zoanthid alive. So I live vicariously through other people's zoanthid colonies, where I'm like, I will enjoy the beauty of your beautiful polypy flower color rainbow from a distance. I can keep pallies alive, just not zoas. I'm cursed. I have like a black thumb just for zoanthids.
I wonder what it is.
Keep your pallies out of here.
I wonder what
I
it
like
is.
Yeah,
pallies.
exactly. No.
I think in the right
I do. I like
environment-
the old school ones. I like the
the cinnamon
brown,
cup ones are really
the big
pretty.
cinnamon, yeah, and then the ones that have the green that fluoresces on them, the really old school ones.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, man, I can't wait till I have like a big colony of these. And you start with 4, and then like 8 years later, you got 7. And you're like, yeah, I'm doing great.
Which is
Doing
like the only
great.
pally anybody should ever have is the one that grows so slowly it can't cause damage.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I think my hate came from the service perspective because I was like, I don't want to touch those things.
Go get him, Hindafora. Go get him. But yeah, I think
Oh,
it's
dude.
knowing yourself, right? Learning, but understanding that some things might elude you forever. Like I said, zoanthids
Yeah,
for
that's
me.
pulsing
But
xenia
everybody has
for
their
me.
coral that they just can't keep alive or just doesn't work
Yeah.
for them in their systems. And that's part of the
I
learning
can't do pulsing
process.
xenia. It's 3 months or less for me. I don't know what it is. Like, I will test that tank every day and see nothing change, and then it's just here today and then melted tomorrow. And I'm like, I don't understand. What did I do? You were so happy. You even like jumped from one rock to another, and it's over. Like, I
It's
don't
like people
get it.
accidentally keep this alive constantly.
Yeah. I'm like, I've seen you grow in overflows with just streams of water coming over you. You're not even submerged anymore. Like, what is going on? I cannot do this.
What was it? I missed
Pulsing
it.
Pulsing
xenia?
xenia.
Which coral? Oh, really?
I can't
Hey, no
do it. I
judgment.
don't
This
know
is a
what it
safe
is.
place. These are our,
Yeah, that's
these are our
yeah.
coral confessions.
I don't know what it is.
It's clove polyps for me.
Yeah?
So clove
Clove
polyps is
polyps.
another one that people say, oh, really?
What's yours, Jen?
Would you like a softball
know.
size? Yeah, what's
I
yours,
don't know. I
Jen?
was just thinking, I'm like, no, they're gonna ask me, and I don't
Jen's
know.
like, I'm actually phenomenal.
Wow,
at
Jen's
coral
just that
reading."
good.
I keep everything. Yeah.
Jen's that good.
No, that's
I'm
not.
kidding.
No, that's not true. So I guess it just changes over.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is true. A Tracky, I cannot keep Trackies alive.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're.
I can't.
they're
I've tried.
very
I have definitely. I mean, and I've never. Yeah, I can't do it. 2 years maybe.
In your personal tank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, now it might be different because I haven't purchased one in a really long time because I'm afraid of them. Even when I brought my Wessos back from Indonesia, I was nervous about them as far as long term, but I learned, the lighting parameters of those, and acanthos too. I was afraid of for a little while too, but I'm not anymore now. I just had them in the wrong water parameters, so I think maybe that was part of it. But yeah, there's definitely Trackies. I'm not successful with over time. I'm just not. But they're so beautiful, and there's so many beautiful rainbow ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I just don't feed them enough, or my tank's not dirty enough. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you
So
never
if
know.
anyone
I
has
think
any advice to that, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Do you
think I
see
just like a
feeding
higher
tentacles?
alkalinity, so Xenia has it.
In the beginning,
And then they just slowly dissipate.
And then they just stop.
it's not even that. It's like it seems like the tissue, like it's kind of like torches where they just don't have a strong tissue base. And I'm guessing it has likely something to do with the way they shipped in the beginning anyway. And then maybe they just
Maybe they got
didn't feed them heavy
damaged.
enough in the beginning. And then, because they are just one single polyp. So, if they get tissue damage, generally it's over.
Do you do proactive
So I'm not sure.
iodine dips on them? Like a Lugol's dip on them to proactively? Yeah. Huh.
Yep.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I've glued some
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Like where it recedes, I've dipped it and then glued it, and
Yep,
it
'cause
seems
then
to stop it.
But I my husband, of course, with his expensive taste on rare things, you know, he orders like these yellow and pink and whatever, and then I just watch them just fade. Which now in hindsight, since it's been many, many years, I'm wondering those vibrant colors, if they weren't faded to begin with, they were already aging.
Oh yeah,
You know
that's very possible.
So I could have already had that anyway, and then just trying to recover it from that state, then I wasn't successful. I don't know, they just make me nervous.
That's fair, but that's also showing a massive part of like responsibility that you're just like, I know, I can't do it. And that's, I mean, people don't like zinnia, but I'm going to save whatever polyps that I'm not going to kill by not keeping it.
They'll be there for somebody.
I have a whole bucket.
Yeah, I'll send you.
Right
I'll
now.
send you like a pound of it. Like that stuff grows like everywhere. It's oh my goodness gracious! And I'll send you a whole bunch of zoanthids as well.
I'm curious.
I wonder if
Except
it's
for my
I
grandmasters.
In my car.
What did you say? I didn't. I missed it. What did you say?
What did you say, Chelsea?
Evie?
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Oh, I was saying I was going to ship out the Anthelia. I have a whole bucket, like, because I came in for this
Anthelia,
podcast from
no.
Service. I have a whole bucket of it in my car right now, and I'm like, I don't want this. So now I'm going to ship it to Evie and see if she
There you
keeps that
go.
alive. And
Xenia, Anthelia, a Tracky, and some zoas. Like we have the most beautiful reef tank.
We do. It's
a terror tank.
I'm curious though, like,
failure.
love to see in the comments what are coral that people like that one coral that you just struggle with. And
yes. What
like,
is
if you
what
have
is the
really good
one that's just
success with
eluded
it,
you?
comment on like your favorite tricks for keeping that coral alive, because I think the best part of this industry
Absolutely.
is sharing knowledge, and I would love
Yes.
help me keep a zoa alive now. But like, I think sharing that information is so powerful and meaningful. So I'm so curious what people struggle with and the tips and tricks for helping them out.
There's someone else out there that can't keep Xenia like me. I just know it. I just know it. There's got to be someone.
Oh,
we're going to find them. They're going to be down in the comments.
You're not alone.
The I Kill Xenia.
Somebody else.
We'll have t-shirts.
Yeah. R.I.P. Xenia.
Yes, we did lots of t-shirts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, awesome. Well, ladies, we made it to our hour. So I cannot wait to do this again, because I feel like we're just now getting the ball rolling, and we're all going to get to brainstorm and stuff in between our next episode. So if you guys have any, other types of subject matter that you'd like for us to cover as well during Ladies Takeover, please drop us a comment down below. And we're stoked. I'm excited to be here. I want to talk about all the things that anybody else wants to talk about. And we're open to any really at all topic when it comes to reef keeping, fish keeping.
Help us
Yeah,
out.
fair.
Yes. Yeah. So, all right, ladies. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I can't wait to see you next time we all decide to get together and sit and hang out.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies.